Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 15 glitch in the matrix and supernatural stories for you. We start with an early morning monotony, peppered with disaster. Case file number 2411, written by Angry Santo. The green light, the roaring engine, and the question. So this happened some 6 or so years ago. Maybe 8 at most. At the time, I worked pretty far from home, a couple towns over far from home. Why work so far from home? They were hiring, and it was the only job I was able to secure that used my degree, and paid more than stocking shelves at Sam's Club. Side note, to hell with Sam's Club. Once I got off the highway, my commute took me through several school zones, so I left home too late. My commute, with tollway and highway combined, went from 45-ish minutes to an hour and 30 minutes at the absolute least. So in order to get to work on time, I'd leave at an ungodly hour in the morning, and get there way too damn early, purely so I wouldn't be stuck in school zone hell. Background set, here's the glitch moment. It was a morning like any other. The sun isn't out yet. I just got off the highway, stopped at the red light. It's way too freaking early in the morning for anyone with a choice to be out of bed. I don't listen to the radio, and the cassette adapter I use to listen to stuff from my phone on the car speaker. Yes, I'm old, and the car is older than some people I know, sue me. Is on the fritz, so I'm not listening to what little music I listen to, or to whatever audiobook holds my fancy. I'm sitting there, at the red light, thinking about nothing. There are no other cars on the road. The only lights are the streetlights, several of which are flickering, a few of which are out. No noise but the sound of my car idling. The light turns green. I looked right, the street was empty. I looked left, nothing. I looked forward, and didn't take my foot off the brake. I waited a few seconds and, I genuinely don't remember if I said this out loud or merely thought it. I said, I wonder why I'm not driving. At that exact moment, a muscle car roars through the red light at Mach frickaduck. Its tires squeal like pigs on fire as it makes a turn somewhere to my left, the sound of the car quickly fading. I sat there and, again, not sure if out loud or thought to myself, said, "Ah, that's why." I then put my foot on the gas and sedately took off. I drive like an old man because cars are expensive and money is tight. Again, sue me. Counting the seconds for how long it would have taken me to get to the spot where Mr. Late for something would have hit me. And it was the exact length of time it took for the light to turn green, for me to look to the sides, and for the car to fly through the red light. I then went to work, and later processed the realization I almost died, or would have landed on so much medical debt that I'd probably have been better off dying. Yeah, that's it. Believe me or don't, people lie on the internet. Either way, have a good day and drive safe. Why believe you? There are countless stories of people at intersections, and stoplights especially, just having this urge to wait, and then a car comes barreling down, maybe it's a guardian angel, putting that seed in your mind. Case file number 2412, written by Ivan Liko. No doorways, no alleys, no clue. I was walking down the street, and a person with an orange scarf on their head was walking towards me on the same side of the road. They got blocked from view by a tree momentarily, and then they weren't in front of me when I passed the tree. I turned around to see if they had sped up and managed to pass me while being blocked by the tree, but nope. Checked the other side of the road to see if they had somehow crossed while blocked. Only a couple school kids waiting for the bus. No idea where they could have gone. I was towards the inside of the sidewalk, so I would have seen if they had entered a building. Plus, there were no entrances on either side of the street, just fences with no openings for a good while. And with the orange scarf, you'd think they would be easy to spot. At the time, I just shrugged and moved on because I was in a hurry. But remembering it now, it was weird. Case file number 2413, written by Polymorpheus Pervert. A quarry, a UFO, and a rock that wasn't really a rock. I do outdoor events and was looking for venues. A friend said he knew a place, so 3 of us climbed in the car and drove there, about 100 kilometers from our city. The place was a quarry next to a river, so it looked great, but the only problem was this huge rock sitting across from where we would put the main dance floor. I'm talking bigger than an absolute huge Winnebago right across the middle of the dance floor. We joke about having to blow the rock up and have it removed if we want to use the place. About a year later, I really need the venue, so I phone the farmer up and ask him to meet me down in the quarry, so we can chat about blowing some rocks up. Hell yeah. He says great, he knows someone with a demolition license, so we can make work of it. I get there a little early and drive down to the quarry and notice the huge rock is gone. This is a bit confusing, so I walked around trying to see if perhaps it was already blasted away. But there are no marks on the ground. Even erosion marks were absent, so even more confusion. The farmer eventually gets there, and I ask him if he already blew the rock up. He says, "What rock?" So I'm explaining this massive rock to him, and his face is getting more and more incredulous. He tells me that him and his friends barbecue there almost every weekend for the last 15 years, and he has never seen what I'm describing. I phone my friend and ask him if he remembers the quarry and the rock. He says, yes, the one we wanted to blow up. I say yes, but apparently it never existed. So the natural conclusion I came to is that this was a UFO with a someone else's problem field around it. Hiding in plain sight. Nice. Case file number 2414, written by Employment number 3590. SUV, the dog, and the invisible husband. My husband went out to CVS to get us some caffeinated drinks on Sunday. It's a task that typically takes 15 minutes or less. He left in his car, and the dog still needed to go outside, so I got dressed, put on my shoes, walked him to the cul-de-sac, which is about 4 houses away. That's typically about 5 minutes there and back. We can still see the house from there. While I was at the cul-de-sac and heading back, I heard my husband's car, but saw a white SUV pull into the house next to ours. I walked back home. The white SUV was parked next door. My husband's car was still gone. I figured he would be back any minute, and we could enjoy the drinks on the front porch in the nice weather. I let the dog off the leash, since he would just hang out. I started cleaning the blades off my branch trimmers to put them away later. I hear his car coming up the driveway. I turn around and see his car backing in. The dog walks to the end of the porch and waits for him. I hear the car engine cut off. I continue cleaning the blades. My husband doesn't get out of the car right away, but I figured he might be on the phone, which would be a few more minutes at most. I finish cleaning the blades. He still hasn't gotten out of the car, and I don't hear the sound of him talking with anyone. I've been getting impatient for caffeine, so I walk up to his driver's side door. He isn't in the car. He didn't walk past me. He absolutely would have had to walk past me, and the dog would have made a thing of it. I go into the house. He's been in the bathroom. When he gets out, I tell him about this what the hell moment. He says he saw me in the cul-de-sac with the dog when he got back home. Insists that was the case. We joke that maybe I was abducted by aliens and move on. It was still very weird. Well, I don't know about aliens, but space-time portals, baby? Case file number 2415, written by Seafaring Queen. Keys, glass, and other things. I had spent the night at my girlfriend's house and was leaving in the morning. Right before I left, she handed me the key, which I very, very clearly remember. I put it in my right jeans pocket. I get a few more of my things in order and begin to head to the front door downstairs. I leave the room and reflexively reach for the key in my pocket. Not there. What? I had just put the damn thing in my pocket. I pull my pocket inside and out and pat my legs down. No key. I take the pants off, still no key. So I start looking on the floor. Maybe I dropped it? No dice. I wake up my girlfriend, and she starts looking too. Asks where I put it, and I tell her, my pocket. She then double checks all my jean pockets and pats me down. We checked the pocket so many times, there was no possible way that the key was physically in my pants. So we start basically tearing the room apart looking for this key. 15 to 20 minutes pass, and we still can't find it, after looking in practically every inch of that room. I'm feeling really frustrated at this point, and feel like I'm losing my mind because I remembered so clearly that I put it in my right pocket. The second I'm about to really lose my patience, I start to walk towards the door and suddenly feel something in my right pocket. I put my hand on top of my pocket and feel the key. It has literally magically reappeared inside my pocket. What the actual frick? I pull it out and my girlfriend and I just standing there in utter shock. This wasn't the only weird incident in that room. Once we were just talking in bed, and a glass on a nightstand shattered without any cause or explanation. I've often wondered if there was some kind of dimensional portal in there, but I honestly have no clue. Case file number 2416, written by Fellwinter 12. Skyrim, bench talks, and a demonic encounter. So I know this sounds like something straight from a cheesy horror movie, but it's real and has kind of bugged me ever since. So this was about 7 years ago. I was hanging out after a Boy Scout meeting with one of my friends. It had been an hour or so after the meeting ended, and our parents were talking, so we knew we were going to be stuck there a while. It was about dusk, shortly after the streetlights had turned on, and we were sitting on a bench facing the road, probably talking about Skyrim or something, when he nudged me and gestured down the road from us. Standing there just a block or two away was a lone girl, standing in the corner, just spaced out and looking at the road. I don't remember specifically what she looked like, just that she was wearing a white dress, had long hair, and looked about 5 to 7 years old. My friend and I shared a confused glance, fully aware that this was an absurd scenario, and wondering what was going on. If this wasn't enough, a car drove around the corner in front of her, as though she wasn't there, and sure enough, when the car had passed, she was gone. We both got up and ran to see where she went. Yes, we would die if it was a horror movie. Of course, she wasn't anywhere to be seen. We did a whole ensemble of makeshift EVPs and the like, to see if we could get anything that might shed light on this weirdness. Outside of an unexplained scream and a woman's voice saying, "Come out, let's talk," on one of the recordings, we got nothing. I don't believe in ghosts, but coming from a religious background, I do believe in demons. I attribute this to a demon messing with us, and knowing that just by leaving us hanging, it would bother us forever. Case file number 2417, written by Juice. Deja vu, Wendy's, and a candy cane from another timeline. This literally just happened, and strangely enough, I'm watching The Matrix right now, and got deja vu of when I saw this toy in the crack of the couch we had when I was 9 or 10 years old. So I'm sitting here, eating Wendy's and watching The Matrix with my dad. It's about midnight, and he goes to bed. I have my Pendant and dropped it down the crack, and when I'm trying to get it out, I spotted this toy thingy that I made in a church when I was a kid. Christmas time, we took pipe cleaners and red and white beads to make little candy canes and shepherd sticks and J for Jesus when I was about 9 years old, 13 years ago. We had a different couch back then, and I got deja vu to when I had dropped it down the crack and had to fish it out. The thing is, if I had lost it in that couch, it would be long gone. We got rid of the couch when I was 11 or 12 and got a leather couch. Even before we got that leather couch, I hadn't seen this toy, but on top of that, just 2 or 3 years ago, we got another leather couch. At this point, I didn't even remember this toy existed. How in the frick did it end up in my couch 12 years later? Because that's what happened. It was in the third couch. Case file number 2418, written by Throwaway Please 999. I forgot my beanie, but it didn't forget me. So, day of my experience. A little more context. I had this beanie that was like a koala beanie with little ears that a friend gave to me and that my live-in boyfriend at the time loved. He would always want me to wear it and would always remark how cute I looked in it. So that day, I was meeting up with an old friend. I hadn't seen her in a couple of years and she was picking me up. We live in a small town, but she lived like 25 minutes away in the middle of nowhere. She picks me up, I'm wearing my hat, we get to her house and we're chilling. Her husband is there tattooing some of his friends, and one of them says he likes my beanie. I say thanks, and take it off along with my jacket because it was hot as hell in that house. I put both of them on a stool. Me and her go outside and smoke. I get my jacket because it's cold outside, but leave the beanie on the stool. We get done in her truck and I ask her to drop me off. We're like 10 minutes away from my house when I realize I forgot my beanie. I immediately got sad and started telling her that it's because my boyfriend loves that beanie and he's going to be so sad. I ask her if I can pick it up tomorrow and she says sure. Now I get dropped off and walk inside my house. To the left, after entering, is a small hallway leading to my room. I walk in the room and the first words out of my mouth are, "I forgot my beanie." He's like, "Oh, I love that beanie. Sucks, but we'll get it tomorrow." In the meantime, we just relaxed. We start to head to my backyard, cross the living room, into a small hallway that leads to the backyard door, and right on the floor of that hallway is my beanie. Portals, man, they shape the universe, I'm telling you. Case file number 2419, written by Fat Blast 42. Chased by gasoline, woken by tragedy. I was having a nightmare. In the dream, I was being chased by someone, running away. The setting was definitely in my hometown, while I currently live abroad, halfway around the globe. Eventually, in the dream, I pass by a petrol station that I know is just a few minutes away from my childhood home. Somehow, in the dream, the person chasing me is now trying to spray me with the gasoline pump and I'm still running away. Next thing I realize, I wake up, within the dream, in my bedroom, in my childhood home. My father comes into the room and tries to wake me up. He's stepping over my body towards the window. It seems like morning or daytime at least, because it's light outside. Now I wake up for real, and it's after midnight, around 1 a.m. or so, dark outside of course. And I'm in my bedroom alone, approximately 12 time zones away. I check my phone, and there's an SMS from my dad about 20 minutes prior, saying to call him. I call right away. He informs me that there's been a fire in our home, my childhood home, and my younger brother has perished. This has just happened. He was calling from outside the house while the firefighters were actively still putting out the fire. While I didn't have any missed calls on my phone screen, he said he had tried calling me numerous times. Of course, I fly back home for the funeral and to be with my family. A little bit of backstory. My brother had been suffering from a serious mental illness, and his condition was getting noticeably worse very recently. The fire itself and the fact he had died in it was suspicious. While it was bad, my parents and 2 cats did get out safely, and without much difficulty before it got bad. We didn't notice it at first, but the death certificate did categorize it as a self-ending, so our family wanted to file a complaint regarding that. The detective at the local police department addressed it, and said he couldn't discuss it over the phone, but to come in and talk. So a couple weeks after the incident, I go with my dad to the local police station to collect personal effects from my brother and to ask about that. The detective informs us that it was indeed ruled a self-ending, no mistake about it. He had used a small gasoline container for our lawnmower to pour on himself and a pile of clothes he was sitting on to start the fire and end. Very sad situation and unfortunate. Though there was no cure for his condition, and no hope to ever improve either, so We pray he is at peace and is in a better place now. Knowing all this, there's an obvious connection with my dream about gasoline involved in the dream when the fire happened, and also that my dad was trying to reach me in the dream and in real life at approximately the exact same time. Based on the timestamp from home doorbell video footage that day, the timing of the fire and my dream lines up almost exactly. Even months later, I still remember the dream very accurately, and I never had a dream like that before. I keep telling people that our dreams, they're not just fictions created by our mind to try to organize our memories. Well, they can be that, but not just that. Sometimes we connect with the beyond, but I'm sorry for your loss. Case file number 2420, written by Hopeful Expressions. A warning from nowhere. This happened a long time ago now. Me and Joe were driving down a busy street late one night, like 1 a.m., coming up on a four-way intersection where the stoplights were flashing. We had flashing yellow and the other direction was red. Off to our right, we could see another car coming from a good block away, and I say, I don't think that guy's going to stop. Joe says, that guy's not going to stop. As we had this conversation, I come to a stop at the intersection as the other car blows through the red light. We both say, he didn't stop. Yes, looking back, our conversation was rather odd. Then we continue on our way to the restaurant. The next night, we're doing the exact same thing, going down the exact same route, and it occurs to me and Joe, we shouldn't have been able to see that car last night. All those houses are in the way. You see, we're driving through a mostly residential neighborhood with fences and not any large gaps between the houses. For years, every time I drove through that intersection, I tried to figure out exactly how we saw the other car that night, and it's impossible. You can't even see the headlights because of all the trees. Someone was watching over us that day. Yes, they were. Case file number 2421, written by Anonymous. 1 pendant, 2 mysteries. A couple years ago, in the fall of 2022, I was sitting in my living room on the couch with my then 3-year-old son playing with him, and I looked down to find my solid gold pendant that should have been on my necklace on the floor between my feet. I picked it up and instantly reached for my gold chain necklace, which I assumed had broken. It did not. It was still around my neck, clasp intact. So I inspected the pendant, and it was also intact. The pendant was a gift from my father. He bought it for me when I was 14 and took us on a Holy Land tour, which included Egypt. It's a standard gold pendant with my name in hieroglyphics. I'm now 36, but I was 34 when it happened. I wear this thing all the time. I'm wearing it right now. At the time, I'd been wearing it for over a week. I inspected every bit of the chain and pendant, and nothing was bent, broken, or dislodged. The ring around the top of the pendant is a solid gold ring, and cannot be separated unless you clip the gold or melt it. I took it to the jeweler, and they found nothing wrong with the necklace or pendant. I've been wearing it almost every day since, and it's not happened again. I fiddle with it every now and again just to test it. I don't know. Help. I'm losing my mind over this. It was so bizarre. There's no logical explanation for how it unbrokenly jumped off my unbroken chain that was clasped around my neck, on my person, and onto the floor at my feet. I would also like to say that the chain is short, maybe 16 inches, so it sits right under my collarbone. I just don't know. That same house that we no longer live in, we bought one, never felt haunted or creepy, but one day I was in the shower, door closed and locked, because our 3-year-old would have tried to get in with me. Kids, am I right? Shower door made of glass. I take a quick shower and open the sliding door to step out, and there's a very clear, very obvious wet footprint going in towards the shower. I did not step out of the shower before noticing the footprint, but if I had, there would have been a footprint heading out of the shower, not into the shower. I haven't ever experienced anything like it before or since. I don't know if it was a house or if I'm losing my mind. Case file number 2422, written by Duffed Pank 48. The Great Wooden Heirloom. Growing up, my extended family spent a significant amount of time traveling overseas, and they would bring back suitcases of treasures as gifts for those of us back home. These items have become somewhat of family heirlooms, several of which are on display in our homes. During the spring of 22, my mother and I were inside talking, when we saw the forecast for that night, predicting a storm. My mom had a patio garden in our backyard, which contained one of such previously mentioned heirlooms, a handmade wooden carving of a man's head and neck. She had placed it outside the week before when she was decorating. Wanting to ensure the preservation of this wooden statuette, I told my mother that I would bring it inside. She replied that it was not necessary and it would not be damaged due to the awning overhead. I, however, insisted on bringing the wooden carving inside indoors and placed it upon the mantel above the fireplace. Listing termites, the patio flooding, and mold as some of my reasons for doing so. Since it did not matter much to my mom where the statue was, she agreed to keep it indoors. Fast forward to the next day, after the storm had passed. I was sitting on the couch and watching TV, when I decided to get a book off the shelf next to the mantel. As I neared the bookshelf and the statuette, I noticed immediately that something was off, and the statue was a shade darker than I remember from the day before. Upon further inspection, I found that the carving was not only a darker shade, but was now fully carved out of stone with no wood to speak of. Alarmed, I asked my mom what happened to the wooden statue, and she said it's always been stone. This makes absolutely no sense to me for two reasons. First, I would not have brought the statue indoors to keep it out of the rain if it had been stone originally, since the termites, mold, and water issues would have never come up in the first place. Second, who in their right mind would pack a 30-pound stone statue in a suitcase for a flight with other items? As someone who travels regularly, I pack light because of baggage weight limits and for ease of movement. To this day, I have no answers to this glitch. We have two other wooden head carvings that were unaffected by the glitch and remain wooden, and my mom does not seem to remember the stone statue being wooden. It remains stone to this day. Probably quantum immortality. Perhaps you perished in the storm, so in your originating universe it could have been one hell of a storm. Case file number 2423, written by Allison's Place. Extra donuts, extra dimensions. I got a grocery delivery and grabbed most of the bags, but left a couple on the porch. I distinctly made the choice to leave them, because the bags I grabbed were already heavy. I decided I would really quickly unload these ones into the freezer and fridge. The two bags left I didn't need, and then go grab them quickly. I unloaded, went back to the porch, and the bags were gone. I was kind of angry, thinking someone came and grabbed them, but I have cameras and they're obvious. So I finished putting things away, then grabbed my phone to see what was missing. Nothing is missing, it's all there, including an extra thing of mini donuts I got as a treat. Bonus donuts. But I know I left two bags outside. Except now my memory is changing. Now I'm seeing myself grabbing those bags as well. But I know I left them. I operated as if I had left them. It's freaking me out a little that my brain is giving me conflicting information. I hope to all the powers that be that if I switch timelines, this is a better one than the one I left. Usually they're all pretty similar, but it is curious that your memories are even being joined together, fused together. My guess is, every unique person is indeed unique, but when a soul transfers in, there's a melding, a blending that occurs, including memories. So your memories are literally slowly adjusting. I don't think either will be replaced. You'll have both, but they'll kind of blend together. Could be very trippy. Case file number 2424, written by D. Bianco. A smile, a coat, a moment. I was sitting in a cafe one morning, facing the front windows. The cafe was below the street level, so when you sat at the bench by the window, you were looking up at the people passing. Big windows, too. Fun time just sitting there with your face at knee level to passers-by. A man was walking down the sidewalk. Youngish, vibrant, energetic. He looked down and met my eye. I had a completely uplifting feeling. I thought, this guy has amazingly positive energy. He had light brown skin, like maybe he was mixed race? And he was wearing a kind of 3/4 coat. I remember the coat because it's quite an unusual choice in my city. He looked great. Anyhow, I broke into a smile just looking at him. He stepped behind a pylon or post or something and he disappeared. I thought he was a prankster and was kidding around with me. So I waited, thinking he'd reappear. We'd made eye contact accidentally, and he seemed fun. A few beats later, still no guy. Now, the only way he could do that in real life is to either drop to his belly and serpentine along the street below the windows, which would take some skill because the windows reached down to his calves, sunken cafe, big windows. Or grab his coat and wrap it tight around himself and back across the street, at such an angle the post would contribute to hide him until he reached the door of a single house where he let himself in, all without a single elbow or coat flap ever sticking out. There was no way he could walk forwards or back along the street without me seeing. No way. I had a huge view of that street. I owned that street that morning. It was a bright, clear day, and it was brunch time, and I was sober. And there was no way that coat would suddenly stop flaring if he was still walking. I was there with my then boyfriend, so I said, "Did you see where that guy went?" But people on their phones, you know. The boyfriend hasn't even seen him. I literally examined the street for evidence when he left. I definitely saw that guy, and he was definitely gone without a trace. I still think about that guy all the damn time. I really liked him. Case file number 2425, written by Elrich Eorik. When a Ouija board knows too much. When I was in the Air Force, I went off base with my roommate. Unbeknownst to me, some of my other friends in my dorm had pulled out a Ouija board. They had connected with a spirit and asked a couple of questions. However, the group didn't trust that someone wasn't pushing the planchette around. My good buddy, Lewis, asked the question of the spirit, "Where is Elrich Eorik?" Lewis was the only one that knew I was off base, so he would know if someone was pushing the planchette around, forcing an answer. The planchette moves around the board giving 4 numbers. The group was confused as they thought about what the 4 numbers could be. While they discussed what the 4 numbers could mean, one of the guys I was observing, named Newberry, said, "Hey, I'm going to head up to get some drinks from my room." As he was heading out of the door, he realized, "Oh, those 4 numbers is the same as my room number." Everyone joked about me being in Newberry's room trying on his underwear or something. Newberry left their first floor room to head up 2 flights of stairs to the 3rd floor to get to his room. I had just gotten back from my night out. It was still kind of early for a Saturday night. I stopped at the front CQ to check in, talked to some other friends, and made my way back to my dorm room. As my roommate unlocked our door, I noticed my neighboring dorm mate's light was on. Light was showing under his door. I knocked on his door and called out his name. "Hey, Newberry!" My roommate realized Newberry wasn't answering and said, "He's asleep." I don't know what got in me, but I had to see him. So I knocked again. "Hey, Newberry, open up!" Right then, from down the hall, I hear Newberry's voice yell, "What the frick?" At the end of the hall is an emergency staircase. That is the back way of getting down to the 1st floor if we're in a hurry. Newberry said, "What the frick?" at least 2 more times, as he walked up to me standing in front of his door. He told me, "Elrich Eorik, don't move." He unlocked his door, went into his room, grabbed some soda, and said, "Holy crap," with excitement as he closed and locked his door. He grabbed me by the shoulder and said, "Come on." We quickly went back to the emergency stairwell, down 2 flights of stairs and across the room, where my buddies were sitting around the Ouija board. Newberry knocked and slowly opened the door, keeping me back, so they couldn't see me. He entered the room saying, "You ain't gonna believe this," and pulled me into the room. My friends were looking at me like they'd just seen a ghost. Before anyone could say anything, Newberry said out loud, "He was standing in front of my door." Whatever force was interacting with the Ouija board definitely had information you guys didn't. That's pretty cool. But a bit dangerous. Now time for the jokes of the day. My wife found out I was cheating on her after she found all the letters I was hiding. She got mad and said she's never playing Scrabble with me again. I'll never forget what my granddad said to me before he croaked. He said, "Hey kid, want to hear my frog impression?" I got an email saying, "At Google Earth, we can read maps backwards," and I thought, that's just spam. My son came to me the other day and said, "Dad, I'm no longer a girl." "Well, son," I said, "I'm no longer opaque." This one took me a few seconds. He's no longer transparent. At dinner, my date asked if I had any special talents. "Actually, yes," I said. "I grew up on a farm which allowed me to become a horse whisperer." She leaned in, intrigued. "Really? How does that work?" I leaned in closer and whispered in her ear. "Horse." Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony, signing off.